Che spettacolo! What a race here at Imola. The circuit has come back onto the Formula One calendar for the first time since 2006, and the race did not disappoint. The headlines: Lewis Hamilton wins another Grand Prix, yet another 1-2 for Mercedes, and more importantly, 7 consecutive Constructors Championships in the bag for Mercedes. Outstanding result for them. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to Pits To Podium. As always, it's myself, Soumil Arora here, joined by Kunal Shah. And Kunal, what did we discuss first? Did we discuss Hamilton's win, how it got stolen away from Bottas? Or do we actually come down to the first, I think my Pits To Podium moment would be, which was Daniel Ricciardo's podium, second in 2 races.
I think it has to be Daniel Ricciardo's podium, Soumil. It was such an unexpected surprise, And we've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The fight for P3 is the most entertaining across all positions in the 2020 Formula One season. We saw it in the race, and we saw it in the Constructors Championship as well. So, fantastic result for Mercedes. I think their choice of tire strategy for Lewis Hamilton is going to be sparking some controversy in the days to come. Yeah. But that's how it goes. They're just able to show their dominant self ever so often and maximize their race result for the team.
I mean, if you betted on them in the Pits To Podium Grand Prix prediction competition, you would be spot on, at least for both of them. That's for Hamilton and Bottas. For Max, well, we shall come to that later on, but let's dive deeper down into what happened in the lead of the race. We saw Bottas hold on to it very early on. Hamilton fell behind to the clutches of Verstappen, then got passed by him. And eventually, I think that virtual safety car that took place because of Esteban Ocon's gearbox issue, I think that's going to be the main talking point. So let's get down to that very first. And some people say it's a bit of luck on Hamilton's side, that he just was in the right place at the right time when the VSC arrived, and he more or less got a free pit stop. But I think there's on the flip side of that to look at it and say, well, he stayed out. That was his approach, and it held out in the end. He was just at the right place at the right time.
He was, and lots of factors coming into play here, and I'm going to try and, put them in some order so people don't get lost. But one of the reasons why, Mercedes was able to do what they were able to do with Lewis is because of the fact that Lewis just has so much in reserve when it comes to race pace. He's able to run these different race modes in himself, which sort of put him in positions for the team to use different tire strategies for him when they need to. And let's remember, Mercedes as a team, and they were going for the Constructors Championship today, and when you look back, they did all they could to maximize a 1-3 to a 1-2 finish, and after a point, it was just bad luck for Bottas that he ended up finishing second, despite for doing nothing wrong all by himself. Yeah. And the other factor here is Bottas and Max Verstappen were engaged in battle for P1. And when Max pitted and then Bottas covered him and so on, it opened up, Mercedes to allow a different tire strategy to be used for Lewis Hamilton. But the reason why they could do that, because the second Red Bull car wasn't fighting up at the front. So it was, exactly, Max Verstappen all by himself fighting two Mercedes cars, and Mercedes did all they could to maximize their race result.
And that's just been the case for Red Bull of late. I think ever since Daniel Ricciardo left, that they don't have a strong second driver to complement that. Again, lots of woes for Alex Albon, which we shall come down to after we've discussed what happened with Mercedes. But the critical point here is, Kunal, that even though Valtteri Bottas hasn't done much wrong, he still ends up having lost more points to Lewis Hamilton this time out in the Championship Challenge. And this just essentially means that Hamilton can seal it in the next couple of races, which I think we saw it a long way coming. I mean, we always knew that Lewis Hamilton has that extra in the bag, but nevertheless, putting in a fastest lap on the final lap of the race, outclassing everyone else, I mean, even defending Verstappen. And yes, luck did play into his side, but that's what the thing is with champions. Champions make their own luck in the end.
That's so well said. And, I'm sure Valtteri Bottas will be going to sleep tonight, convincing himself that luck isn't on his side, in 2020 as well. Because it was just bad luck that, a piece of maybe Vettel's front wing was lodged in
Yep.
his car that cost him performance. It was just bad luck that, when Lewis Hamilton came into pit, the VSC was triggered just at the right time. And let's remember, it was the VSC was triggered for exactly the same period of time Lewis was in the pit stop, so nobody else literally had the benefit of the reduced speed for their rivals on track. I think Stroll maybe had it for half of his pit stop or
Yeah.
something. So, Bottas will just be like, that's it. All I have to hope for in 2021 is better luck. Because let's also remember, he's been oh so close to Lewis Hamilton in the qualifying sessions in 2020 that Lewis Hamilton himself made a reference to this, yesterday after Bottas edged him again by less than a tenth, for pole at Imola.
Exactly. It's just so close between the both of them. And the interesting part is right here that, I mean, make of it what you will. Some people will say, oh, conspiracy theory, the FIA want to favor Lewis Hamilton. But no, just a lucky coincidence, which he maximized towards the end. Let's put it that way for Lewis Hamilton. And even for Valtteri Bottas, that damage that you mentioned, the loss of aerodynamics, it was huge, the loss of downforce, I beg your pardon. And the Mercedes engineers on the radio said that it was significant damage, and you could see it. He was locking up consistently at the Rivazza corner, where you need a whole lot of downforce. So clearly, it wasn't working out for him. But then let's come to the second big point of the race, which was Daniel Ricciardo. Now, we just got confirmation from Ricciardo saying that Cyril Abiteboul won't get the second tattoo. But on the broader perspective, the decision not to pit in the final safety car just really, really helped them out big time towards the end.
It did, but if Cyril's not getting a tattoo, given how excited you get each time Daniel Ricciardo's on the podium, maybe you should get a tattoo for yourself, Soumil.
Maybe a few years down the line.
But yes, Ricardo benefiting from Verstappen's DNF and Alexander Albon not being in contention for the podium. So he benefited from that. He chose to not pit towards the end of, towards the late race safety car, as did, I think, Charles Leclerc. And it just showed that, Renault chose track position over a better tire for the later stint of the race, given the circuit characteristics where everyone was, finding it so difficult to follow and overtake. In hindsight, it turns out to be the right decision, because I think this is maybe the third race in 2020 when Sergio Perez has missed out on a podium. I think it was in Austria when he suddenly had a front wing failure. I think it was, it was a contact with Albon, and then a couple of races ago he was, again in podium contention. And like Perez said on our TV show, that it's easy to look back and criticize, but at that time they probably did the right thing. And this is something I was talking to Nityanand, our colleague at Pits To Podium, that Perez, by virtue of being the driver leading the midfield pack, would have been in danger if people behind him would have pitted. So,
Exactly.
Racing Point did what they had to by pitting and sort of mitigating their risk at that point. And I think he sort of missed out on P3 because the safety car period ended up being longer than expected, given George Russell's
Exactly.
embarrassing crash, behind the safety car.
I was just wondering about that. Perhaps Daniel Ricciardo and I think even Sergio Perez, yeah, they just held on to their positions because the virtual safety car was that bit, the safety car, I beg your pardon, was that bit longer. Had it not been that way, who knows? Maybe the pressure rubber could have come into perspective. Maybe those other guys behind could have passed him. And speaking of other guys behind on fresher rubber, full of momentum, Danny Kvyat, P4 towards the end. My goodness, that was some result. Yes, he made that stunning move around the outside of Piratella, which is the a downhill left-hander at the top of the hill. Amazing, amazing stuff. And he caught Leclerc out by surprise. That and Alex Albon's spin got him the position towards the end. But you've got to say, when in Italy, AlphaTauri just switch up again and they just get these big results over here.
Absolutely, they do. And, given that Pierre Gasly was running as high as P5 because he was forced to retire, who knows? It could have been Pierre Gasly on
Exactly.
the podium if everything would have run to course as well.
Exactly. They're doing quite well, AlphaTauri. Let's call it that way. They are maximizing all that they've got. But now that we've spoken about the top contenders in the midfield, and one question still that comes to my mind is, how does Sergio Perez not have a seat for 2021? Let's actually move towards Red Bull. Now, that's a big talking point for today because Max Verstappen early on, the pass on Valtteri Bottas, that is 100% commitment. Early in the start, he got the jump on Lewis Hamilton, and it did seem for quite a while that Mercedes were wary of Max Verstappen because they essentially got Bottas to pit because they had to cover off with the Verstappen's undercut. So, on the whole, he was quite the force until that puncture, and that just changed everything.
It did. It was just so unfortunate. Gladly that, he escaped unhurt. His car was fine. But I think this Verstappen is maybe its third retirement
It
in the
is.
last five
It
races.
is.
So that's cost him a lot of points against Valtteri Bottas in P2 in the Drivers' Championship, I'd say. But overall, I think more than anything else, Red Bull would just be scratching their heads a little bit more about Alexander Albon
Hmm.
and the very fact that good things have been different had they had two drivers fighting against the two Mercedes drivers up at the front. Because I'm pretty convinced that Mercedes wouldn't have found it as easy to run Lewis on the strategy they did had they sort of kept, had a second Red Bull driver been there. And just to, I know I'm going back on that point, but I was chatting with Ajit Devdasan on Twitter. He's an FI accredited journalist as well, and the question we will all get an answer to, in the next couple of days when Mercedes releases their pit wall video is, did the virtual safety car come first, or was the decision to pit Lewis Hamilton that came first? And of course, on broadcast, it seems very seamless to us that the minute Lewis was in the pit, the virtual safety car sign, came on. So that's an interesting clarification we'll get in the next couple of days to come, Soumil.
Absolutely. And folks, the broadcaster Kunal is speaking about right here is the Viasat network. He works at the Viasat network in Norway, covering most of the Formula One and the motorsport content. So he's a man who knows exactly what he's doing. But Red Bull aside, actually not Red Bull aside, let's actually stick down on that very note for a couple of moments. What is it with Alex Albon? He was just doing a decent job by his own standards, and I say that with a great amount of weight attached to it because he's not had the best of times in Red Bull. But nevertheless, after the restart, there did seem like a ray of confidence around again that, hey, Alex Albon, fresh rubber, he's an exciting driver, he's an eager driver, always willing to make a move. But what was very interesting to me was that there was no contact between him and Kvyat. Or I think the car that he got passed by was Leclerc, I guess. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confused about that for a second. So when he got past, there was no contact. He spun on his own. And Carlos Sainz just had to make the dodge of the century not to hit him. But nevertheless, it's just a clear sign of him cracking under pressure. Unforced error,
It
basically.
is, yeah, unforced error, and at a time when he was in close contact, close battle with a lot of the Formula 1.5 rivals,
Hmm.
and for him to say that, hey, I'm pretty sure I was touched just before I spun out is definitely him trying to save himself. But I think it's probably just a lot mental, just the kind of pressures they go through. And let's remember, I mean, Alexander Albon is third in the list of drivers who were promoted to Red Bull much earlier than they were
Yeah.
sort of ready, or maybe fourth in the list of drivers. Because if we remember Max Verstappen's early days at Red Bull,
Yes.
he struggled a lot as well. So we've had Max Verstappen, Danny Kvyat, Pierre Gasly, now Alexander Albon, and one can only hope that they aren't making haste with Yuki Tsunoda by putting him into Alpha
Exactly.
Tauri in 2021. That is, if that of course happens.
Exactly. And even with Max, many people now you may come back and say, but hey, Max Verstappen won his first race at Spain. He did, definitely did. But after that, it was a very rocky road for him to get to the level of Daniel Ricciardo. And when he did, boy, he became some competitor. So that's Red Bull sorted. That's the midfield sorted. Let's actually digress to George Russell now before we come to the whole strategy element of Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen, which was pretty significant, by the way. George Russell, you've got a feel for him. Under the safety car, cold tires, cold brakes, just a little too eager on the throttle. heading down towards Acqua Minerale, and quite the pun actually. It seemed like it was wet at Acqua Minerale, so he spun out and crashed. But nevertheless, it's a very sad accident. But I think the one thing that's really bothering me right now is the fact that if George Russell has done it, everyone's comforting and saying, "Oh, George, you poor soul, we feel so bad for you. Could have been points for you right here." But take your mind back a couple of years ago, Azerbaijan. Roman Grosjean, he did the same thing, and he was absolutely lambasted on social media. So it doesn't quite weigh up for me. It doesn't quite seem like the same thing, Kunal. What's it all about?
This is just human tendencies and classic human behavior at work, when somebody like George Russell does it, he gains our sympathy, and when Roman Grosjean does this, he deserves our trolling. That's that's just
Yeah,
how we see them. And this is probably and hopefully the last of George's embarrassing moments in Formula One, I'd say. But one of the reasons why this whole biased tendency comes out as well is because George has done nothing but shine in the last as many
exactly.
races as he's been, and he's been pretty much error free. He's earned the praise of somebody like Fernando Alonso, as we all know. Whereas Roman Grosjean has been the effort terrible. Even before his crash behind the safety car at Azerbaijan. But
Yeah,
that's how life is at times. There are some people who you just want to cheer up as much as you can, and then there are some people you just want to keep making fun of. And Roman Grosjean
exactly.
belongs to the latter, I'd say.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate that case, but same for George Russell too. The way he just sat down at the exit of the track, he was distraught very clearly. He just wanted a few moments for himself, and that happens. But to cheer him up, I think lots of champions have had such moments like this as well. We've seen Mika Hakkinen have a couple of moments like this, Montoya, Schumacher. So if anything, he's in a good club. Let's put it that way. But but Russell aside, all the accidents aside, I think one major talking point in the mid part of the race was what strategic decisions did Sebastian Vettel and Sir Kimi Raikkonen do? My apologies. They went out pretty long. If I can remember correctly, Kimi Raikkonen did it on 50 odd laps on medium compound tires, and he was fourth. And Nityanand just pointed out on our Pits to Podium group that we have here on WhatsApp, he said, had he stayed out a couple of laps later, who knows? Kimi Raikkonen may have been fourth with track position. But, and on the other side of things, for Sebastian Vettel, he could have had a very good position as well, but just that slow pit stop, excruciating.
Excruciating indeed. And, Vettel was ahead of Raikkonen just when he had a slow pit stop. So maybe Vettel could have finished up ahead as well. And I'm just reading my notes. Vettel did like 39 laps on the medium, and Kimi Raikkonen did 48 laps on the medium. So, it's great to see both the Alfa Romeo cars score points, and they literally ran the reverse strategy with Giovinazzi starting on the soft and then finishing on the medium, and Kimi doing the exact opposite. So, it's always good when when the lower midfield also scores, and has a good race. But
Yeah.
unfortunate for Vettel, because he would have been in the points as well, because everyone's been cheering how Charles Leclerc found himself fifth and held Sergio Perez on fresher rubber back in the last few laps of the race, Soumil.
Exactly. That was a good thing to watch out for. So it's good to see Alfa Romeo do pretty well too. And just a quick word on Antonio Giovinazzi as well. The start, not bad. He's gained one position in every starting lap of every single race. And yes, on one side, you can look up and say, hey, that's probably because they don't qualify so well. But nevertheless, a very good start from him too. Started 20th, came up to P14. And I wouldn't say that's the one factor, that's the only factor that behind why you would retain him for 2021. But here he is, he's got that seat towards the end.
Yes, he went up six positions, like you pointed out on the opening lap. And that's exactly what Alfa Romeo was hoping for when they decided to start him on the soft tire from P20.
Hmm.
And let's remember, it was just the last race when Kimi Raikkonen did something very similar, at the start of the race. So I think Giovinazzi's, climb up the ranks on the opening lap deserve as much of a cheer as we did so for Kimi Raikkonen, I would say, Soumil. So great to see him retained for
Absolutely.
2021, and I'm sure Ferrari know why they are retaining him, apart from just his opening lap skills and maybe his nationality.
Exactly. And very quickly, folks, before we wrap up, there's also a couple of very important points that happened in the race. Lance Stroll had a decent comeback, finished in P13 after his opening lap skirmish and front wing change. But Nicholas Latifi, P11, only a couple of seconds behind Antonio Giovinazzi. What could have been? And just a very quick word on Nicholas Latifi too. He's just been in the right place at the right time always. Whenever there's been incidents for somebody, I mean, most of the times when we've seen Russell having a bit of an issue, that's when Latifi pops up. We saw it in Austria as well, but just not getting the points. But I would say not bad. He's not doing a very bad job, is he?
Well, not too bad a job, but the question should be asked, why is he not able to do what Mr. Saturday does in qualifying
Yeah.
ever so often? So, being 7 tenths away from just P10, at least a fantastic result, shows he had an error-free race. But talking of Lance Stroll, he suffered from cold brakes and, almost took his front jack
Yes.
man
Yes.
off, and I'm hoping that there wasn't too many injuries that the front jackman would have faced, because that looked a little too aggressive on
Yeah.
on the broadcast camera. Again, not to say the driver made a mistake, but that's what happened. And but I'm sure at the end of the day, Russell would be wondering why the second race in a row he's not been able to match Sergio Perez and the brilliance that he's been able to pull out ever so often. And again, Racing Point in their fight for P3, which by the way they lost the P3 to Renault, after Ricciardo's podium. They need both cars fighting up at the front, and that's not happened for two races in a row. And we all know how closely fought the battle for P3 is, Soumil.
It is, and it means a lot for the teams. We've discussed it so many times here on Pits to Podium, but it's the first time essentially that these midfield teams have a chance to fight for P3 now that Ferrari is not doing well. So it's a big, big marketing attraction for them, if you will. And yeah, they've got to fight for that. And again, there are people saying that, oh, Lance Stroll can potentially beat Sebastian Vettel next year. The way it's going doesn't quite look like it.
It doesn't, and it's. I hope it's not a season or a team of who drives far worse than the other that settles the whole Stroll versus Vettel
Yeah.
discussion. And I've attracted a lot of flack when I wrote a post which said that will Aston Martin use Sebastian Vettel to make Lance Stroll look good? But the truth is that that could very well happen, and
Yeah.
it could give an image lift for Lance Stroll, and how he's sort of struggled with this whole perception in 2021. But that's for next year. And now the upcoming race is going to be Turkey in 14 days time, Soumil. Turn 7, turn 8. That's what everyone's going to be looking for. And with Hamilton having the chance to sort of seal his seventh driver's title as well. So lots to look forward to in the coming races.
Wait, didn't he see it already in Austria back at the very first race with the confidence he drove? Lewis Hamilton, right? That's the kind of driver he is. But no, on a very honest note, Turkey should be awesome. Turkey should be amazing. It's a circuit that we all love. Uh, Thankfully, or unfortunately, I mean, depends on which way you look at. There are going to be no fans. I mean, in a way, it's good because Turkey sadly always faced the problem attracting fans to the very circuit because it's what as far as away to Istanbul as it is to the moon. Essentially, that's how far it is. But again, on the same side, we are seeing a few fans enter most of the European circuit. So, nevertheless, whatever it is, it's a plus or it's a minus, depends on the way you look at it. But should be a fun race on the whole canal. And we should be discussing that more midweek when we come for our pre-race preview. But nevertheless, if you just had to pick one big winner from today and just maybe a couple of prediction points for Turkey, what would they be before we wrap up?
I think the one big winner for today for me would definitely be Sergio Perez. We didn't see him on the podium, but he literally ran in contention till the last pit stop, which, as we explained, was something that the team would look back on, because let's remember he also didn't make it to Q3, so he
Yeah,
made the most of the free tire choice he had. And I think he ran an old cut of maybe 5 or 6 or 7 cars,
yeah,
to get to P4. And then he also had a comfortable gap, I think a gap of at least 3 or 4 seconds to Daniel Ricciardo. I'm talking of before the late race safety car came out. So, Perez is literally just showing how how Racing Point has made the wrong choice for 2021, which we all know, but he's giving us proof with every passing race. So for me, Perez was the big winner. And for Turkey, again, going back with the statistics, difficult to not pick a Mercedes pole and win, when we get back to racing in 14 days' time.
Should be brilliant. Should be a fun race back in Turkey in a couple of weeks. We shall see you midweek when we come with our pre-race preview. Until then, don't forget, follow Pits To Podium and the Inside Line Formula One podcast. Links down in the description. And if you aren't participating yet, the Grand Prix prediction competition is still open. We start in 24 hours before qualifying begins. So that's where you can come in and give your predictions. So once again, folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, which is why you're here at this stage, please feel free to give a like, to share this video, and to subscribe to the channel. And as always, Kunal, thank you so much for being here.
Likewise, Soumil, thanks, and see you guys at a video very, very soon.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.